This is one of the most wide-open playoffs in NFL history, and it's been a season of turnarounds. Here's just a few notable nuggets from our research team. Most playoff teams coming off 11 or more lost seasons all time, 5. Most division winners with 5 or fewer wins in the previous season, 4. And most worst to first division winners all time with 3. That is the bracket, and we'll get to some breakdowns, but hello, everybody. Welcome to HQ Spotlight on CBS Sports Network alongside Katie Mox and Danny Kanell. I'm Tommy Trance. We have our quarterback in studio for one very specific reason, Mox.
We do, because Danny Kanell has put together a list for us of his quarterback rankings heading into the playoffs here. And at number 1, no surprise here, Matthew Stafford is the favorite right now for MVP, followed by Josh Allen and Drake Maye. Then you got Jalen Hurts. I'm really tickled and pleased to see Brock Purdy here at number 5. And the list goes on from there. So let's get Danny back in here and let's talk about this list and some of these matchups for this wild card weekend. And Danny, we're looking at number 1, Matt Stafford versus number 14, Bryce Young. Probably the biggest disparity in all of these matchups. It's the largest spread that we've seen in the playoffs for quite some time at 10.5. What are we looking at here?
Katie, honestly, the first guy for me, Matthew Stafford, was the easiest, and the 14th guy was the easiest, and Bryce Young. And I think most people, if you polled a lot of people and said, how would you stack up these quarterbacks, there might be some debate at who's number 1. You know, if you wanted to go with Josh Allen, if you wanted to go with Drake Maye, I would totally understand it. But I do think Bryce Young pulling up the rear would not be a shock to anybody. I would expect most people to have him there. Lack of playoff experience. He's coming off a good year, not a great year. And I still think he's got a lot of work to do, and he doesn't have a lot of great pieces around him. So all of this kind of made me where this was the most obvious of these two selections, the top and the bottom of this list. And I expect Matthew Stafford to go out there much more attuned in the finish to the season when there was some seeding at stake and potentially a number 1 seed, but kind of getting their minds right, the Rams, for a postseason run. And I think the Panthers, the only reason I think the Panthers are dangerous, 2 reasons. One, they're at home, and one, they're playing with house money. Like, no one expects them to win, so you're playing loose and free. But I also think this is the time when the best tends to rise to the top, and that's where I think Matthew Stafford is the clear-cut favorite over here.
Well, I will say, Carolina embarrassed LA with that win earlier this season, so there's a revenge angle here, even though they're 10.5-point favorites. 3
turnovers for Matthew Stafford, which was not what we've seen from him in the MVP-type season, as you mentioned, Katie. So that is 1v14. It's 2v8 in our next game. It's on CBS, actually, on Sunday. It's Bills and Jags. And I want to get to Josh Allen in a bit. But the other side, so Trevor Lawrence at 8, Danny. Some might say that's a little too low for a guy that's been hot lately.
So if you notice, there was a trend on my list. I did favor a lot of veterans, a veteran experience. Drake Maye was the only guy with little to no experience on this list. There is a different level of play. When I was young, my second year in the league, we made the playoffs with the Giants. And I had my quarterback coach sat me down. He said, there are 3 different speeds in the NFL. There's preseason, there's regular season, and there's postseason. And all of them are different. They're all different speeds. You get the highest level of intensity, the highest level of preparation. Nobody takes a playoff. There's no load management. And that takes experience to get used to. And I know Trevor Lawrence has made the playoffs before, but Josh Allen, with the most playoff experience of this whole group outside of Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers, and the level of play where he was in that MVP conversation for a large portion of the season, I think he's coming off the MVP season, which gives him a lot more just high-level experience under pressure, under the gun. And hopefully this isn't a knock to Trevor Lawrence. The 7-game win streak has been awesome. Liam Cohen has gotten the best out of Trevor Lawrence, but I still think the very clear-cut edge here goes to Josh Allen.
So when it comes to the MVP from a season ago, how much do you think he looks at the bracket and says, no Mahomes, no Burrow, no Jackson on my side of the AFC?
I keep asking the question, if it is not this year for Josh Allen and the Bills, when is it? Because you mentioned it. You don't have Mahomes, you don't have Burrow, you don't have Lamar Jackson, the other kind of guys atop the Mount Rushmore of the current NFL stage. And while there's some good young quarterbacks and some good teams, this is where the experience should come into play. And I do wonder if that helps this Bills team kind of raise their level of intensity. The defense has absolutely been a liability. I get that. But Josh Allen will need to play the role of Superman at times throughout this playoffs. If they're supposed to, win that elusive Vince Lombardi trophy, he's going to have to put the team on his back while balancing the turnovers, because that's always been something that's cropped up, and it's bitten Josh Allen at times before when he's struggled with turnovers in those moments, trying to do too much. but I would count on him to play his best this postseason.
Do you think that he has more pressure on him now because those guys aren't here? So he probably feels it even more.
Katie, I think so. And I think his teammates are also aware of that, the opportunity. I mean, the history is there with him going only so far without being able to get to a Super Bowl, without having the postseason success. And I do think we've seen this before with other teams, with veterans. When I think of Peyton Manning late in his career with the Broncos, John Elway late in his career with the Broncos, when the team kind of raises their level because they want to do something special. Matthew Stafford's first Super Bowl with the Rams, when they made that blockbuster trade, you heard about the players on that team talking about what it would mean to bring it to Matthew Stafford. I think the Bills very much have the same mindset, which again, that kind of pressure does build up, but I do think Josh Allen is built for it with all the experience that he's got.
Sometimes the devil that you do know is better than the devil that you don't know, because there's some guys that are coming up here, including your number 3, Drake Maye, which I'm sure a lot of people thought you would possibly put at number 2 there, because he is in this running for MVP as well, versus number 10, Justin Herbert. You got Drake Maye that's leading the Patriots here back to the playoffs after a drought, and then Justin Herbert, who's trying to break through into the playoffs.
Yeah, this one for me is a lot about the surrounding pieces as well, with Justin Herbert being so low on this list. He's always been somebody that has been pegged as somebody who's ready to take that next step and really crack that top 5 of NFL quarterbacks, but he hasn't been able to do it yet. And there's been a lot of injury issues. He's been banged up. The offensive line has been struggling, and that is not the case for Drake Maye, who this is his first year really arrived on the stage. But with a lot of young quarterbacks, and this is the reason I have Drake Maye so high for somebody with no playoff experience, he has been close to flawless this year. I mean, he has been so unflappable. He has not had that game where you're like, uh-oh, there's that rookie moment. He's got a maturity about him and a poise and a composure that you see in the pocket that is uncommon. You do not usually see that. So that's why I have his ranking as an uncommon ranking here for somebody so young amidst all these veterans.
Yeah, and for Justin Herbert, he had his arguably worst game last year in the postseason when the Chargers needed him the most. So we're going to get out of the game previews with the quarterbacks going head-to-head. More positional conversations here, Danny. So we're talking about Aaron Rodgers ahead of Jordan Love here. Take me through how close that was there for you.
Oh, very close. And Jordan Love, again, he's more of the upside guy. Like if you said, hey, who has the better upside, I would say Jordan Love clearly does. I am banking on Aaron Rodgers getting some vintage Rodgers moments here. I think for them, and we saw this from Mike Tomlin in the post game when they were able to escape the field goal from the Ravens and they got in and they won the division. This was the reason Aaron Rodgers was brought into Pittsburgh. It was, yes, to get them to the playoffs, but now they're there. It's to lift this team on his back. And we saw that at times throughout the season, especially in that Ravens game when you saw some vintage Rodgers plays. And I'm really excited to see him get DK Metcalf back on the field, because I think you're going to see somebody playing that really feels like they got slighted with that stiff, 2-game suspension from the NFL. And I think that's going to do an incredible amount for the Steelers team, because over the last 2 games, they've had other players who have had to step up, whether it's the tight ends, whether it's the other receivers. And I think that helps Aaron Rodgers trust some of the other pieces, where you'll see DK Metcalf will have a huge role, but other players will be able to step up because they had to without him on the field.
How concerned are you with the concussion that Jordan Love is recovering from?
That is also an issue, too. The fact that he's been banged up a little bit down the home stretch, that has to come into play anytime you're evaluating all of these young quarterbacks. So that definitely did factor in.
All right, Danny, let's take a look at the number 1 seeds here. You got number 9, Bo Nix. That's where you ranked him, versus number 12, Sam Darnold. Both of these quarterbacks have played well this year, but they're largely carried by their defenses. And this week, they're going to be under a lot of pressure.
They are. And this is so unique because I have Matthew Stafford 1. The Rams, full disclosure, are my Super Bowl pick. And so I think they're the best team in the NFC. And in the AFC, I've got Josh Allen and the Bills going on this unlikely run to the Super Bowl. Again, this comes down to a lot of experience and these young players having to rely a lot on their defense, specifically Bo Nix. And Bo Nix has been a little bit too inconsistent throughout 4 quarters of football through 17 games of the season. I know he's been spectacular at times and some incredible fourth-quarter comebacks and playing the role of hero. But at this point, you cannot rely on those fourth-quarter heroics. You've got to be great from start to finish, which is another reason why Sam Darnold's a little bit low. Every once in a while, and I actually probably felt more comfortable about Nix at 9 than I did with Darnold. That was a really hard one for me. I think for Darnold, it's more about the brand of Sam Darnold, like having to see him do it over time. And he's had a couple moments this season where you're like, uh-oh, Is that the old version of Sam Darnold cropping up? We saw that last year at Minnesota down the final stretch of the season. That still is in the back of my mind. But unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're Sam Darnold, you can prove yourself to be playoff worthy and Super Bowl caliber worthy throughout this playoffs.
Well, one thing, real correction there. They're obviously not playing this weekend because they are the #1 seeds. They go to the divisional round. But when you look at someone like Sam Darnold, and I feel like you kind of already laid this out, his reputation is someone that can't win in the big moments. And like you said, we saw that at the end of the season last year. I thought he played pretty well against the 49ers. I know that defense is banged up, but that was a game where people thought, well, maybe Darnold's going to fall off here. How far do you think he can go?
Oh, I think they could win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to pick them to do that.
Okay.
But you would have to have an unlikely run from Sam Darnold where he would play different than he's played throughout the last couple years, even though he's been so good. Again, it comes down to those moments where every decision is amplified that much more because it is the playoffs. Again, we talked about that intensity level and what's at stake and what matters out there. And Sam Darnold at times has bounced back even after rough starts in games and been able to lift the Seahawks to a win. He's done a good job distributing the football, and it's been a great story. He's surprised me with the success that he's had in Seattle this season. I thought you would see a little bit of a transition year, and he hasn't dropped off at all from what he did last year with Minnesota. But now you have to start stacking those games against the best competition you're going to see all season long.
Well, it's always nice to talk quarterbacks with our quarterback. Thank you so much for stopping by, Danny, and ranking them with us. And he said he's not going to pick Seattle to win the Super Bowl, but let's go ahead and take a look at the odds right now. According to our friends over at FanDuel, the Seahawks, you see that there, Danny? They are the favorite, plus 390, followed by the Rams. A lot of respect for the NFC West. And then you got the Broncos, the Eagles, Pats, Bills, and Texans rounding out that top 5 or 6.